Python, we will do a bunch of sums and then you will do some of them. But there is one concept which I have not yet discussed, I should have discussed earlier, which is how to take input. We have not done that with C++ also. C++, how do you take input? C. Right? Anyway, I'll show you. I have examples. We'll start doing it. How to take input in a Python program. Okay, some of you may already know from what we did earlier, but I think still, I'll quickly, 5-10 minutes, I'll just spend on how do you take input. We'll just look at it. I'm assuming, or I know that some of you already know, but nevertheless. So, yeah, so we will, okay, we'll show in practice how to take input and put it in a list, for example. Okay, let me show with just a basic example. So let's say you have to take a list of numbers, 35, 45, 75. You're given a series of numbers separated by space and you want to take them and put them in a list. So how does Python work? So you have, let's say, S is equal to input. Or if you want to give a prompt, you can give it here. Input, enter numbers. And you want it on the same line, then you have to say no. It is not equal to input. So you just say input, enter numbers, and then hopefully the user enters the numbers. These are the numbers he enters. So they all come and sit in S. But how do they sit? By default, all the numbers are read and they come and sit in a string, one single string, which is not what you want. You want them to be split, converted into integers, and put in a list. So you want three things to happen. See, you will be given a string, or this S is equal to input, enter numbers, or whatever. We'll take this string as one big string. So what do you want? You want three operations to happen. You want it to be cut, chopped, and then you want each one of them to be mapped to an integer, and then you want them to be converted into a list. The output of the map has to be converted into list like what we saw yesterday, last class. So how will I achieve that? So I will say S dot split, and when you say S dot split, that is on a string, you can do a split. When you say S dot split, you can give a delimiter, but if you don't give a delimiter means what is a separator. But if you don't give a delimiter, that's fine. Automatic delimiter is space. So the space automatically will be there as a delimiter, so it will break it. Now what will you get when you say S dot split? You'll get L. Okay. You'll get a list. But you know what is wrong with this list? What is wrong with this list? It will get how many values? 3 values. But each value will not be an integer. Each value will be a string, which is not probably what you want. Now you can go one by one and convert it into integer. So if you want to do it, you can do it two ways. You can create a empty list L1 is equal to empty list. Then you can say for x in L, for x in L, that is, you go through L, that is now you will get x as first time 35, for next time 45, 75, that will be your x. What do? You say L1 dot append int of x. This is something you can do. And your L1 can be used as a list of integers. Okay. Let me walk through it again. Everybody clear what I'm doing? What I'm saying is, if you have to accept these three numbers from the user and put it in a list of integers, because right now we are working with lists. How will you do that? That is all I'm saying. I'm showing you the slightly roundabout way of doing it. Then I'll show you a truncated or a reduced version of it. The roundabout way or the longer way of doing it is, first do S, read the numbers in S, automatically they will come as a string, big string. Okay. Second step is chop that string. How do you chop? Split will chop that string. Split can have a delimiter. Okay. But I don't want a delimiter, I just want to blindly split based on space. So I will get a L as a result of this S dot split. I will get L, and that L will be a list of strings, not list of ints. All of you understand? S dot split will take a string, split it into smaller strings, and that will be produced as a list here. Then I say L1. Again my hand, it doesn't make it look like it looks like row 1 or something. Okay, L1 is equal to empty. I start with an empty list, and then what I do? For x in L, that is I go through each element of the list, of the original list, and say L1 dot append int of x. So I convert each x into an integer and then append it to L1. Then my L1 is ready. Now it is a list of integers. This is one way of doing it. Everybody with me on this way? If you want, you can do it this way. Okay. There is a simpler way of doing it using something we talked about yesterday, last class. L1 is equal to list of map. I'm just writing it, then I'll go one by one. Map S this is a smaller way, or maybe I will call it a cuter way of doing it. This is all I do. So see what's happening here. I am reading the data in S, same way. Then I am splitting it. Then what am I doing? This split will produce a list. This split will produce a list of some kind. What kind? List of strings. Then what am I doing? Remember yesterday we saw map. What does map do? Goes through each element of the list and transforms that element into something else. Remember, yesterday in the last class we wrote a lambda function here. Remember? To transform into something else. We wrote a lambda. But int is also a built-in function. Int is an integer and a built-in function. What will int do? It will transform from string to integer. So this is a pre-created function which is available, which takes each element of the list one at a time and using the map and transforms. This is a mapping function which will transform a string into an integer or anything into an integer. And that the map will do this to every element in the list, and it will produce a series of integers, iteration of integers, which I will then, this outer list is to convert whatever this has returned into a proper list, because it can be some other collection. Map produces not necessarily a list, it produces some other collection, and that I have to convert it into list. So now L1 is that list. So instead of doing all these three lines, I can do just this line. Both are equal. Both will produce lists. And then you can work with that list. Achha, here I am starting from this point. Okay, you can also make it even shorter. What you should do? In place of S, you should say input. Okay, you write that input in place of S, and you don't write S at all. Then input split, input function split. Okay, so let's write it quickly just to show how this happens, and then we will start doing a bit of exercises. So we will say L is equal to, okay, we'll write the longer form first. S is equal to input, enter the numbers. Then we will say L is equal to S dot split. Split without any parameter means split on space. Then we will say L1 is equal to empty list for X something in L, X in L, L1 dot append int of X. So just that, and when you run this, you say print L1, you will get a list of integers. Whatever. So you see, we entered the numbers and then he entered 13, 15, 16. It converted it into a list 13, 15, 16. Now if I print L, I will get it, but each will be a string. If you want, we'll see that. Print L also above or bottom. Print L. What will be the mistake with L? It is not converted into integer, so it won't. So we will see this. Okay, 13, 14, 15. Look at the difference. Yeah, the above one is. Yeah, the above one is the L1, which we converted into integer, and the below one is a list. But that list is not useful to us because it's a list of strings. See that single quote that marks it as a list of string. We don't want that. We want a list of integers. So you can produce this L, then go through each element, convert it into an int, that is tedious, or you can use the map. Now let's write the code the second way, that is the way, shortcut way of writing. Does the same thing, but does it more. Yeah, this is how you comment out 3 single quotes. Yeah, 3 single quotes will make it. So now we are doing S, we got the numbers. Now we'll say L1 is equal to list of result of map. Map takes 2 parameters always. First is the function which has to be used, which could be a lambda function, but it is not. It is a pre-created function called int. Then S dot split. Okay. So we take the same stuff and write it little differently, and we'll get a different output. Different output, same output, but we are doing it differently. So what is that doing? S dot split is splitting S, then that is producing a list, then the map is working on that inner list, taking each element of the inner list, converting it into integer, producing an iteration, which is then converted into a list. So here we go. Yeah. So when we run it, we will see its output. Output will be the same. We enter 13, 14, 15 or whatever. Oh, we are producing only one list. Okay. So the answer is, as you can see, same 13, 14, 15 in list of integer form. Okay. So this is how you get a list of integers. Are you with me? Okay. Yes, no. I think this some of you already know, but I thought it is necessary that we need to talk about it before we ask you to do some questions. Correct? Now we'll open up a couple of questions on your laptop, on the telescope. So please go ahead and do that and see how it's happening. We'll open up very easy ones. Let's see how many, because we have to get used to it. We open one question, quickly do it, and then since it's the initial questions, I'll explain how to do it also. But try to finish it as fast as you can. We have opened the first question. Or I can write a loop. I mean, if you don't want to use a built-in function, you can write a loop. Check if element exists in the list and print the number of occurrences. Occurrences is how you get using count. First you check whether the element is there in the list, and then you can use a count. Then what is the largest element of the list and the smallest element? Bit of discovery, max, min, they already exist. So how will you do it? So first enter list of elements and this will count. So this has to become a list of integers. We already just a little while ago we discussed how to get this into a list of integers. I assume you have a list like this: 4, 9, 7, 6, 3, 12, 7, 12, 7. Okay, so this is what is the list. If you read it the way we just talked about, you'll get this list. Okay, so once this list is there, what is the question saying? Check if the element exists in the list. For that, just the way I would do if I was new to Python and all that, I would go and see what are the functions available on a list. Okay, because we have Google available, or you have whatever thing you want to access. We want you to learn with Google, and we want you to learn with that thing in mind. So now, how do I do that? So how would I check? I mean, the way you would know about doing it, I would go to the net. That's the beauty of having you on the net. Okay, I would go to the net, and then I would say, open up tab, see whether, I mean, if I don't know anything, I'll say how to find elements in a list, right? How to find an element in a list in Python. There you go. So there is a nice method looks like called index. Then I'll go and see how the index method looks like. I can go to W3C, or I can look at an example here. So streaming is the name of the list which he has, and index will give you something. And if index, I guess, is -1, then it says that the element is not there. It returns a -1. So if you look at the documentation of the index method, so you see that it's given there. Index method takes a single argument, which is the element, and returns its position. And if it is not there, then you can straight away check and see it gives a -1. Somewhere else it will be documented that it will give a -1. Or you may find here itself somewhere. So I will use this. So what will I do here? I also, of course, I have to get this key also as a single element. So for this, a string and convert it into, that's how you will get this 7. So those of you who are having difficulty getting this 7, what you have to do is, you have to say input, what is this prompt here? Enter, search. Please be careful, you have to copy it as it is. Enter search key, okay, just like it is. So this input will take input reduce it into a string. Whatever, the 7 will come to you as a string, but you want it as a number. So if you have said that is n, you'll have to convert this into an integer. So you'll have to do that and get the n. So n is equal to that. So that will give you this. And then you have to say whether it exists in that or not. Okay, so how will you now write this? Okay, well, there are many ways of writing this. Now, but let's think about how will you write this. I think we have not spent elaborate amount of time. You can use a formatting of a string, and I think this is a good point to introduce. How do you format an output? So I am going to show you how to do this. For that, I am going to go to documentation, W3 schools, and I am going to show you a format method on strings. Okay. Actually, I should have shown you that before, but let me show it to you nevertheless. And so let me go to W3 schools, Python strings. I am just picking one so that you know how to do that. And you have to get increasingly oriented towards the net. Now, in the string, there is a particular method. At the end, there will be string as array. Format. Go to next. Say format. Okay, there is a method called format. I'll show you that method first, and that will help you do this. Okay, now, yeah, this is what you do. Wherever you want a value, you have to supply that value. Just like percentage %d or percentage %s. Here you have to just put a placeholder, and then you will do it. I'll show you. Go to the question. Go to the question. So the format, please understand. You create a format and then supply the values. txt dot format. Okay, let's go and see how you do it. Okay, now here you need a value here. So I'll show you how to get that value, but before that, let me say what your format string is going to be. Okay, so the format string is going to be txt. Let's create a format string. Txt is equal to. Now this number has to come later. So I'll say placeholder there. Exists. This is one format string when it exists, okay? And if it exists, then you have to say count of, again, you don't know what exists or what doesn't exist. And is, again, you don't know what it is, okay? So this is your format string. Now please mark my words. Text is equal to. I am giving the format string, that means here some value will come, exists, count of, something has to come here, is, something has to come here. So this is how you create a format string. Now, what will you put here? Okay, that depends on whether it exists or it doesn't. Now for non-existing, if it doesn't exist, the answer will be here. What doesn't exist? So let's say e-text and any text, not existing text. You create two format strings. So here, what should you say? Space, placeholder does not exist. Okay. So you have to write it like that. So you have one ext string because you want to give. If it doesn't exist, you want to print like this. Okay? And when it exists, you want to print like this. This is the variety. So depending on whether it exists or not, you will have to use either this format string or this format string. Okay, I know I should have explained a lot of this before I started to write this. I didn't see this myself. Okay, but doesn't matter. It is a good point to discuss. So this is what it is. So exist, not exist, two strings. Now I have to check. I have the list and I have what I have to search for. So I can now do an index operation on this list. Let's call this list as L, which I have created from the numbers, and n is what I am looking for, and depending on whether it exists or not, we will do this. Okay, so let's now complete this. Just know that we are having these two. So let me take a fresh page and write the remaining code. Let me go ahead. Okay. What will I write now? I have done what is L is the list, then N is the number, then I have eText, existing text with the placeholders, and any text for not being there. Now what will I write? How will I write the code? I will say if, okay, if, now see the index operation, L dot index. If L dot index and the parameter to index is going to be n, L dot index of n, that is in the list L, see if this exists. If it is not equal to -1. If it is not equal to -1, what should I do? I should use the not equal to -1 means the value is there in the list. So if the value is there in the list, which format string should I use? This one or this one? Which one should I use? The eText, right? Existing text. For that there is a way to write, and for any text there is another way to write for not existing. So if L dot index n not equal to -1, what should I do? I should use a format string, print eText. Okay. Print eText. And now eText means 3 values. What are the 3 values? That number exists or not, and what is the count of that number. So it exists or not, n exists or not. And then you have count of. Yeah, so this is print eText, that's all. Dot format. Now I have created the format string, but now I have to say eText dot format. I have to pass the values. No? So n, first value for the first placeholder, that is first open bracket, close bracket. So eText dot format, n is the value which is going to sit there. Then what is the value? Again n. Comma n. Then we need one more, which is the count of n in that list. So I'll say it is already existing. So L dot count of n. So this is what I will print. Correct? Else, what I do? Else I print. What will I print? I will print any text. Dot format. Only n. Okay. Okay. Now this is quite a bit of code. So I think they have time to do it. So open something else and type. Okay, anybody has done it this way? Similar to this, so that I can show that code. Okay. Somebody very close. Using what format? Dot format. So 619. I'm just trying to see if somebody is very close to this code so that we can. That is also okay. That's okay. Instead of taking eText separately, this is fine. Okay, we'll walk through our code. We can optimize it a bit, but that's okay. So, yeah, nice code at the prima facie level, especially at the beginning. T is equal to input, enter list of list elements. That whatever gets entered. Then look at line 25. She is converting that into a list as we discussed earlier. So this is a easier way of converting. T dot split, I am going innermost. T dot split, that list will be split into a series of strings. Then they will be converted by map into integers. So each of the string becomes an integer, and then that map of integers is converted into a list, and L is that. So at this stage, L will contain the list of numbers, what you want. Then we are asking for the search key, that we have to input it and take it as an integer. So see that line 26 has that int there. Now she is not using an index method, which I am fine. So index method is not mandatory, but it's easier to use an index method. So you can iterate through the list also. You can loop through the list also. So for I in L, that is examine each element of the list, if I equal S, that is S is what you are looking for, which came on line 26, search key. So if that value is equal to the search key, what is she doing? She is setting the flag F equal to 1. That is similar to the one which we saw in the morning, where we set a flag depending on that find. Remember the find which somebody wrote? So that flag was equal to 1 or flag was equal to 0, depending on it. So the flag is equal to 1, and I don't know what is the A being used for. That's a count. Okay, count of that. In case you have a hit, you count the elements. So she's using A for doing that. Though you can use count itself and get it, but this is also fine. So this is done manually. I have no problem with that. So when an element is matching, she's keeping F equal to 1 flag and A equal to A plus 1. Perfectly fine. So at the end of this for loop, we'll have an if and we'll have an F and we'll have an A. No problem. Then the max is just max on list, min on list, that gives you the maximum number and the minimum number. That is easy. Then look at line 35. Can you scroll up? Yeah. Look at line 35. If F equal 1 means what? We have to use the existential list. That means the element was there in the list. So what we did, if F equal 1, then print. Now you can do it like this, or you can create a separate string and use it. Doesn't matter. So with the placeholder, the string is created. Now you don't even need the space, 0 and 1. Automatically you can substitute the values. But because you are using only 2, then you have to do it. Or you can use 3 and use placeholders. So the format string, the way she has created is 0 and 1. So 0 will be the first value supplied and 1 will be the second value supplied. That is also fine. So print, given a format string, on that call the format method. On any format string, you can call the format method and supply the values for 0 and 1. The supply value for S, the value for 0 is S, the value for 1, which is count, is A. So that value is substituted. Nicely done. Else means the flag is 0, that is doesn't exist. Then what do? Then 0, that is placeholder, that 0 means the first placeholder. You can refer to them this way. If you don't want to refer, you just make open and repeat all the ones. But this is better. So print 0 does not exist, dot format S. So the value of S, which is the search string, goes in the place of that 0. Then largest element is whatever, that 0, then format MA. Smallest element is again 0, format MI. Format means supply the value. That means given a format string, on that you call a format method and supply MA and MI. I did this last year, so we are not doing it again, but I thought we should have done it. But this is a good enough opportunity to show you how this works. So in essence, if you have to show something in a particular format, you can do either of these two. You can say print and you create a string as she has done with placeholders and call the first placeholder as 0. Then you could have some text, then have another placeholder as 1. Then you want to repeat 0 again, you can put 0 again. And then on this string, you say dot dot, that means on this string, you are calling a method called format on this string. And you have to then supply the values for 0 and 1. So if you have two placeholders, 0 and 1, that placeholder value is used twice. So you need to supply value 3, 5, or these can be variables also. And then it will get, 3 will become 0. So this will be 3, this will be 5, and this will be 3 again. So this is how the format string will work. This much explanation I think should be adequate for you to use format strings reasonably well. Please do make use of this. This is very contemporary and you should use it. So whenever an output is desired in a particular way, learn to use it this way. Okay? So again I'll pause for a few minutes. Those of you who have not finished, this is a good time to finish it and then we'll move on. Because I am going very slow because we want you to finish. We want you to get the hang. At the moment we are not worried about performance of your program. We're just ensuring that you write correct program. We have still some time where we talk about complexities and we talk about how to make it better, all of that. At the moment, no. If you get it correct, we are fine. Okay, so this is what we wrote, what I wrote rather. So we have line 24, enter list of elements, end is equal to space, which means that don't put a end character. The new line don't come because you want to write on the same line. You can write that with the input also. Okay. You can write it with the input also, but we wrote it separately. Then we are splitting the input, we are taking the input and splitting it, converting each value into an integer, putting in a list. Then we are taking the input, taking the key and converting it into int. Now you need that enter search key there. Otherwise it won't match. Then we are writing existing text. That is, we need one format string, one way of showing when the text is there, and one way of showing, when the number is there, one way of showing when the number is not there. So we created two format strings, eText and nText, and with appropriate, I didn't put zeros and ones. If I don't put zeros and ones, then I have to supply for each one in that order. If you put zeros and ones, then even if that value comes 3 times, 4 times, you have to supply it only once. Okay. Does not exist is the nText. Now look at the way I did line 29. If lst dot index key not equal to -1, that means -1 is when the key doesn't exist. So if it is not equal to -1 means it exists. And what we have to report in that case is, if it is not equal to -1, print eText, that is existing text, dot format. This is another way of doing it. So you can say, take a string and say format on it. Or create that string there only and say dot format. Either way is fine. So eText dot format. eText is that line 27. Dot format. Now I have to, because I have not used position 0, 1 like that, I have to supply value for each placeholder. So which I am doing, which is key, count of so and so is that the way the text is? Okay. Count of so and so is this. So key lst dot count. Now count is a function which is available on a list, which counts the occurrence of a given element in a list. So I am using that. Okay. So as far as I have nothing against doing on your own, but unnecessarily you need not do. When there is a built-in function, you might as well go ahead and use it. That is what it is meant for. Right? So you do that, and then you say else print nxt format key. That is if it is -1. The -1 that doesn't exist. So you need to have some other way of showing it. So that some other way is nxt dot format key. So nxt dot format means it will take that string, does not exist, and place of the placeholder, open bracket, close bracket, it will put the value which I am supplying. What is the value I am supplying? Key. So that is what I am supplying. So that is how it works. The largest element, smallest element. That's typical. Yes? Okay. Let's see how many of you finished. I hope I reached the number. Or we reached the number. Hey, come on guys. We are 12 short. Now the rest of you please bear with us because we need to carry the whole gang. Small things. It's not exist. So correct it, probably it will go through. We have to keep a notional target. So we are 125. People did it. I think the rest of you can finish it. We have to move on. So we'll open another question and then we'll do it together. I mean, you do it, then we'll do it. So, yeah, this is easy. Yeah, interchange first and the last. That's all. Very simple. But remember, in list we have that slicing, how to get to the last element, we discussed that. So this is about that. So take in a list and interchange the last, first and the last. Very simple. Yeah, those of you who have not done the first one, please move on to the second one. You can finish the first one later at home because the system is available to you at home also. You can do it at home, we have no problem. But just finish it, that's all. Second one is easy, R code. So we ask for elements, we can ask that in input also. Print the number of elements, enter list elements. Then as usual what we wrote last time, input.split, whatever the elements they get split as strings, get converted into integer using the map, and then the output is put in a list. So list ls2 is our list. So we are saying show us the list before interchange. So that is how you can show the list before the interchange. Just say whatever it is and lst2. So that is before the interchange. Then you do the interchange. You can do this in one line or two lines also. Here it is a tuple kind of interchange. You don't have to do it this way. What you can do? ls2, if you want to interchange, this is one shot. Otherwise you have to use an intermediate variable. I think that's how you did, right? So you can say t, okay, let me, because we have not shown them tuple. So instead of this code, I mean instead of line 20 that way, this is from one of your students, one of the students. So this is good enough. Okay, this is what list before interchange. This is fine. How this list looks. If you don't need this, you can just say L. But this is also fine. This before interchange. This is one way of doing it. So in this string, just format L. L is okay. It will just show the list as it is. You can use anything. So in place of this, it will show L. Then T is equal to L of 0. That is the first element. L of 0 is equal to L of minus 1. That is how you address the last element. And L of minus 1 is equal to T. This is how you do. T is equal to L of 0. L of 0 is equal to L of minus 1. And L of minus 1 is T. This is how you do replacement. You store what you are going to replace, T, then update the value. Otherwise you lose the earlier value. I think all of you know why you have to use a T. The earlier value has to be stored. Then the earlier value has to be overwritten. So this is overwriting. And then L minus 1 equal to T. That's it. Then print list after interchange. Same way, formatted. This is fine. Or you can just say list after interchange. Don't give this. Just say L. That is also fine. That will get printed. But this is, if you want to follow the standard methodology, you can use this. Always use that formatted string, placeholders and all of that. This is fine. Okay. Now what I'll do is, okay, so we have done exercise 1, exercise 2. Now what we'll ask you to do is, I think you can do 3 and 4. Okay, so we'll open up 3 and 4, you can do it at home and all that. Okay, so we're doing very small. So we are opening up 3 and we are opening up 4. Okay, we opened up both 3 and 4. Okay, now we will stop here.